Thank you all for being here tonight. The first item on tonight's work session will be a discussion of gardeners and custodians with Mr. Richard Johnson.
Thank you, Council President, Mayor, Council. This is going to feel a little bit like deja vu all over again, but I do want to kind of have y'all aware of it before you see it actually on an agenda. If you recall, during the budgetary process, we had a conversation about the situation that we have with our gardener apprentices in our Streets Horticulture Department. We have 3 positions that are classified as gardener apprentices, and then we have positions called gardener ones. And the reality is that those apprentices do the exact same job as the gardener ones. They work right along and do the same thing. And we had been seeing a good bit of turnover in there. And if you look in the memo that I sent you, you can kind of see what the gardeners apprentices earn. It's $9.64 an hour is the low end of the scale. And what we're requesting, we were budgeted for a brand new position to add an additional litter patrol equipment operator apprentice at a grade 11 at $8.30 an hour in the budget that y'all approved. That position just with straight up salary is $17,264 a year. If you apply 35% overhead, which is kind of the number that we use to reflect the cost of the benefit package that goes along with that, that is around $23,306. And what we would like for you to consider is an amendment to the budget that would accomplish a couple things. One, eliminate that new position and regrade the 3 gardener apprentices up to gardener 1 and move them to the absolute low end of the starting salary. That would take those 3 current filled positions as gardener apprentices to $11.92 an hour. And we would get out of the gardener apprentice business. That job description would no longer, or that job position would no longer be a budgeted position within Public Works. The net effect of that in just straight up salary is $12,105.60. With 35% overhead, that rolls up to $16,342.60. Since the time that and I know when we talked about this during a budgetary work session, it seems to be that y'all did not appear to have any real heartache with this. The problem is it just never got actually captured in the budget that was approved. So we need to make sure that if you're agreeable to this, that is done correctly, and that is completely on us. The other issue that has come up since the time that we last discussed this is we employ 4 part-time custodians. 3 of them work evening shifts. They start about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and work after hours until the different facilities are responsible for cleaned up. And we have one of those 4 that is a swing operator, meaning they work some weekend time to do the park restrooms, since they do get dirty over the weekends and we want to keep those looking nice. As you recall, part-time employees are not included in any cost of living. They're not included in consideration for merit raises. And our custodials are grade 11 part-time, and the starting pay is $8.30. In the last 12 months, we have had a 75% loss in employees, meaning that we've had to replace 3 of the 4 in the last 12 months. It's part-time. It's pretty low pay. It's not a fun job, and my Arthur Bosarge, who is the assistant director, he kind of runs herd on our custodial operations, came to me and says, is there any way that we can get them an increase in compensation to try to keep retainage higher and make turnover less? And what we're requesting to consider in this kind of budgetary amendment is just across the board $1 an hour increase for those 4 custodians, part-time, and the maximum a part-time employee can work is 19 hours a week, because any time over that we get into required benefits and things of that nature. And using a 15% overhead, because there still is some FICA and some other things have to be there, that's a net change increase of $4,544.80, which those 2 acts combined still would be $2,419 less than filling the 1 budgeted full-time position. So it is revenue neutral as far as the budget has been passed. But what Paul Merchant with Horticulture, who also is responsible for litter patrol, feels that by additional compensation to moving the Gardner apprentices up, that those individuals during downtime can help supplement litter patrol, and stay on top of that, because they share that job on, depending upon loading and demand. And I think we get more performance out of the smaller group of employees. We're actually growing the employee base less by one, since we're not creating a new position and filling a new position. But I think we're compensating good employees that we have now here and trying to keep retainage and productivity up. And that's it, and I'll be glad to ask any questions that you have.
I want to start. I don't have any problem with any of that. I think that's all a good idea. I don't necessarily, the fact that it's net neutral doesn't affect me at all. It's the right thing to do, but just saying that we're not going to fill one position so we're able to fund these others doesn't really have any bearing on that. In fact, I'd worry about something being put in the budget in the future and saying, oh, we're not going to fill that, I want to give everybody a raise. I'd rather just, your arguments that you made for the pay increases was,
Thank you.
I thought, enough for me anyway, but that's my 2 cents. Anybody else, council?
Not me.
I mean,
No
I think
problem.
we had intended to do the first part from the beginning anyways, it just got.
And that's 100% on me. I didn't ever get with Jill to get that actual corrected in the budget. I made an assumption, and you know what they say when you make an assumption. So I just want to make sure that we can get that corrected and move forward.
Are they okay to wait till the next council meeting for that, do you think?
Absolutely.
If you tell
Yes,
them, council, is that okay? Okay, I think we just need a quick budget amendment to that in the next meeting, which is only 10 days from now.
Yes, sir. And I will make sure I get with Jill so that she can coordinate with Lisa.
In fact, you know, custodians making $9.30 an hour, I almost feel like that. I don't know how people make it on that. I almost feel guilty that that's too low.
And the fact that they smile and say hello to you when they're doing their job, and I just appreciate
I
the
mean,
heck
I
out of
think
them.
some people are working in, you know, lots of jobs that make, you know, more than that. Well, I'd almost consider wanting to offer up $10 an hour.
I'll leave that up to y'all's discretion.
Well, I don't know, but I don't want to get outside of what the realm is of what they're supposed to be paid, so I don't want to assume that I know what they're supposed to make, but I feel for anybody making $9.30 an hour, just trying to, even if it's part-time.
Yes, sir.
When you did
It may
say
be
that
somebody's
was the
second job,
starting
isn't it?
range, right, was the 8:30, so it could be that they're.
They're all
Above that.
pretty close to the starting range,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other comments on that pay, though? Anybody else ever had any thought about that?
Nope.
Leave it as is, at 9:30? Think that'll make them happy?
Yes, just a dollar raise across the board.
Yeah.
so.
Let me think about that.
Okay.
As far as my opinion, I might
Okay.
think a little about that.
Okay.
I'm like you. When I first heard that, I thought, ooh, man.
I don't know. That's starting to get, that's pretty low. Okay, all right.
There's no issue with raising it a dollar. I guess the issue is whether to raise it more than a dollar.
Well,
Right, that's correct.
I will not debate.
You'll at
you
least
or
have that
argue
on
with
the
you if you want to
resolution.
do more than a dollar.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yep, okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir.
And not on tonight's work session agenda, but there was an emergency meeting of the Personnel Board meeting this morning, and we have Lorenzo and Diane Thomas here to give us a quick briefing on what they came up with this morning. So apologize to those of you who don't see that on the agenda, but this is important enough to hear what they have to say. Oh, it was? No.
I have to give my time. I didn't realize.
I just want to start off by saying, last time we were here for this issue was 2015. And at that time, the council asked us to look at pay ranges. They had not been changed in 3 years. They said, please look at pay ranges and see if you think that they need to be amended. And we looked at data from 5 other municipalities, and we looked at cost of living increase from Social Security, and we made the decision, a recommendation to the council, that they should be increased by 3%. And that was April of 2015. When we come to October 22nd of this year, And the council again says to the personnel board, would you please look at our ranges and see if they need to be amended? And again, we've gone about 3 years with no change to our ranges. I asked Lorenzo to come back as a consultant to the board. Most of y'all know that he is no longer a board member, but he's been involved in this project since the very inception and since it was adopted by the city. Lorenzo said yes, and then we met with Kevin and Jack to make sure that we understood the task that y'all wanted us to do. And then we met with the mayor, and we outlined the information that we needed HR to collect so that the board could proceed with the discussion. Leslie and Terry did an excellent job on collecting information. They got us even more information than we had used before, this time from 7 municipalities and from Baldwin County. I sent all this information to the board members prior to our meeting this morning. I also sent it, Kevin received it, Jack received it, and we met and we looked at the wage data, wage increases, COLA. We looked at Social Security increase. We looked at, do other municipalities adjust their ranges on an annual basis? And this evening, to the 3 of y'all that didn't receive that data, I just went ahead and sent you our charts so that you could see what we looked at, what we considered. And based on 2 facts. One, it's been 3 years since we've done anything. And the second fact is that most municipalities, unlike when we did this adjustment before, most municipalities have been giving yearly COLAs. And they have also been adjusting their pay ranges on a yearly basis. So this is the recommendation from the Personnel Board. The board recommends that the City of Fairhope's pay ranges corresponding to grades 10 through 34 be increased by 6%, and that the council review ranges on an annual basis to determine if an adjustment is warranted. So our recommendation is that the ranges be increased 6%.
Not just on the right, but also on the left.
Minimum, midpoint, and max.
Okay.
The whole thing shifts 6%. There are 2 consequences to this. One is any employee who has been topped out, as this range moves 6%, they would then be able to receive whatever raise was authorized by the council, as long as it didn't put them over their maximum again. And I don't think that would happen, because I think y'all approved a 1.5%, and we're moving the range to 6%. The second thing, and this is important, the board has always recommended that if there are those employees, when the ranges move, that now they're below the minimum, that we bring them up to the minimum. And I had some information on wages from August of 17, and I looked. There are very few employees that fit that. Our lifeguards fit that. Some of our beach attendants fit that. But because of the raises that we've given over the last 3 years, anybody who was at the minimum in a grade 10 or a grade 11, they've pretty much moved up. But we would ask you all to consider, if anybody is below the range, that they be brought up to the very minimum within that range.
And just a comment about that, the last time, 2-3 years ago, whenever we did this, that cost us $1,800.
Yeah.
That was the $1,860, and that was the cost for that. And this year, it'll be even less than that.
We think.
But the earning opportunity for our employees, once they got to the minimum, increased. So you're not talking about breaking the bank.
What pay grades did you state in the beginning?
10 through 34, all of our pay
Oh,
grades.
okay, because I couldn't remember the.
All of our
perfect.
pay grades.
Oh, that's perfect.
The whole
Right.
range.
Yes, very good.
Council, you have any questions for Lorenzo or Diane?
We appreciate your time.
Yep.
We really would ask for y'all to look at this on an annual basis, and it may be that the ranges don't move. You know, it may be that people are not giving increases and our cost of living is very low, but it would be a good thing.
And the only other thing I have to say, she said I was a consultant. Don't get nervous, I'm not getting paid for this stuff. Most consultants do. But we also want to look at the big picture. What we're doing now is a quick fix to take care of a problem. The big picture is to look at our whole salary structure. Look at a system where we tie the job evaluation process, job description into the merit system. And that's the next project that the Personnel Board talked about and want to move forward with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, to that end, middle of last week, it had been requested to put the one-time pay raise, which is basically the year-end bonuses that we give, on the agenda. I had rejected that pending the results of this study because I didn't want to, that would penalize the people that may be in line for that 1.5% pay raise. For those people that are maxed out, that would be far more detrimental to them. And so the hope was that we would get these results prior to the next meeting, and we could put it on the December 20th meeting. And that was kind of pushing our back up against the wall, but I thought that was the right thing to do so that people didn't get left out of raises, because once they're given that, they couldn't have gotten their 1.5%. Let's say they'd come back and recommended, increasing the ranges. Well, they would have been out of luck to get whatever that 1.5% would be if we gave them the $240 bonus, the one-time pay increase. But in light of the Personnel Board having the meeting this morning and making the recommendations that they made, I'm going to ask you at the beginning of tonight's meeting to walk that onto the agenda. And the reason is that will give Finance Department more time to have those one-time pays processed and just, because they've been waiting for a long time to hear this. And I think it might just also calm down any employees' fears of whether or not they're going to get that one-time pay increase. And then for those that are maxed out, hopefully they'll have the comfort if it passes. I'm not going to assume it is, but I'm going to bet that it will. They can have comfort knowing as soon as possible that they're going to be in line to get an annual raise as well. And then those two are separate. So they would get, those that are maxed out would get their 1.5% pay increase plus their bonus based on their years of tenure. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's why I had taken it off, to not penalize those people, but why I'm now asking to walk it on. Okay. Clerk, did you get something prepared for us for tonight? Okay. All right. So I will ask for a motion at the beginning of the meeting to amend the agenda to take care of that. And thank you, Mr. Howard, and Ms. Thomas, for all that work on there. We'll be asking you for more work in the future. You always do great work. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 2, the briefing on the Restore Act proposals, and the mayor has informed me that this can be a short update on that. But what I was looking for was, I get asked, certainly, if not weekly, monthly, for what it is that we've asked for. And I know that we've been told that we're getting, we've asked for money, I think $10 million for infrastructure improvements, and then also for monies to make improvements at the marina. And what I'm really asking for is, what exactly have we submitted to the Restore Act Council to be considered? Because I can't answer that question in detail when I'm asked that question. I think that we need to be given whatever information.
We do have it on our frequently asked questions on the website, and I've been posting and communicating it, but yeah, we're fine going over all of that. And
if we can just get
my only
even if
communication.
and even if you go over it now and put us just the packet that's been given to the Restore Act and for exactly what we've asked for, whether it's charts, plots, diagrams, whatever it is.
It's pretty general in the beginning until you get Treasury funded funds. You really can't better define those without spending any money. If we spend any money now, we won't be reimbursed. So a lot of those things that are fine-tuned and things that we would make, public included on, because we want the public to be included, can't happen until we get the funding. We have bucket 1 and bucket 3. Bucket 3 is not even close to getting to Treasury yet because it's just another process. We only have what we're waiting on from bucket 1, which is one project that we hope to be funded early next year so that we can start the process, which will include defining a lot of these details.
Right. So if you go back to bucket 3, which hasn't even gotten to
That bucket three, just to be clear, we've got the bucket one, it's just, the only one in bucket one is the 6.2 million
Right.
living shoreline.
Working waterfront and green
Right.
space restoration project. And I think early on, we met, you and I met a little bit about what we were thinking and some ideas, but it's pretty general, as Mayor said,
Right.
until you move forward and get approval.
Well, I just want the council to be in on the front
Absolutely.
end and not on the rear end.
There's
So
Right.
there's
that's what
nothing,
the
any
point is.
update that we have, which we won't get another update unless Treasury gives us one,
Well, council
is
needs to
will be
be-
definitely well communicated.
If we're asking for $6 million, I'm just asking that the council be informed and be a part of what's is going on the front end, and not when it goes through a process to the end of the process, and then we're informed as to what we ask for. I think we need to be a part of it, a little more active part of it, or at least be informed, and maybe we say, well, we don't want to be a part of that, y'all handle it, but
No, we
at least we'll
want
know.
somebody on council for each project, if not
Right.
more. And like
One
I
or two
said,
people to be on.
everything that's been communicated so far, which I've actively been doing, none of that has changed, or we don't have any more detail until we get more from Treasury. But we'll go ahead and
And I can
update it
kind
again.
of give kind of an idea, because of they kind of give some guidelines of what this money has to accomplish. And there's an environmentally based economic benefit that has to be achieved.
For this first bucket.
And so for bucket one, we call it resilient working waterfront, and we're concentrating on our municipal pier area because we consider it to be kind of the town square of the city of Fairhope. It is a focal point, it is a thing. And as you know, there's some maintenance issues down there that are big ticket items. And so when we wrote this description, it was written, may include but not limited to, because we kind of threw everything that we could think of at it. When we get funding, we will then have to go through a planning and feasibility portion. That's the first thing they're going to fund, and that's when this will get defined, because one, we have a budget. We know we don't want to be in a position where we're coming back to council for more money than the 6.2 million allocated. But here was kind of quick that this was a concentration on the municipal pier, the North Beach and South Beach Park areas, which would include replacement and improvements to bulkheading, looking at the ability to eliminate bulkheading through a living shoreline that may require offshore jetties and breakwaters. Bluff stabilization. Our bluff is behaving pretty well right now, but it has kudzu and a bunch of non-natives, and looking at a way to not only stabilize it, but make it an enhancement and amenity of the park system as well.
It was addressing some erosion issues that were brought up in the study by Dr. Douglas as well.
Retrofitting the pier, looking at updating handrails, human-scaled lighting, aesthetics, things that make the pier more attractive, more usable, more attractive to our visitors, our citizens, and in general, overall park improvements that can include additional bathrooms, because as you know, there's not a bathroom in South Beach anywhere. Enhancing the trail system, making accessibility from the top of the bluff to the bottom of the bluff in locations ADA compliant, and general landscaping and hardscaping. And I mean, that list is actually pretty long, and I'll be glad that we can get it to you. But here's the reality. We kind of know that all these things on the wish list is probably not feasible in the budget that's provided. So then, as we go through that process, and y'all have already established by resolution a park planning team, and we've asked at least one representative of the council beyond that, eventually we'll have to get our absolutely needs identified versus wants. You know, the bulkhead on the South Beach is going to have to be addressed, whether it's with a replacement bulkhead or a shoreline that's resilient, using breakwaters or whatever. And that could be a third of that $6 million easy. And the bluff stabilization, what does that eventually look like? It could be a big ticket item as well. So I hope that you don't feel like we've been coy. We kind of threw out everything that we thought that could possibly be done to improve not only the use of the park, but the resiliency of it over time. But the reality of it is everything that's on that list is probably not going to be able to covered by the budget. And eventually, as a team with council involvement, mayor involvement, stakeholder involvement, we'll have to figure out what kind of the priorities are and let that project develop based upon how far the budget will go for.
Is there any funds that were asked for maintenance or erosion control?
Definitely
near-
erosion control is part of it.
Near the Fly Creek and near our marina there?
It's mentioned in the current proposal, which, as Richard said, is just a preliminary. Everything, we threw in everything. So it's in there, but when we get the green light from Treasury, that's when we really have to hash out what the details are and what all we can afford with that 6.2 million. I mean, like Richard said, you can't spend any money to do the proposal, so it makes it really difficult especially when you're talking about engineering to this degree, because you're just ballparking things a little bit, based on experience and who we had on staff and how we could pull this together.
And the
So
scope
it's in the scope, but is it feasible? That's another.
We purposely include in the scope of funding every bit of shoreline that we own. So that includes Fly Creek, which we own the north half of that, as well as from Pier Park down Magnolia Beach, Orange Avenue Pier, all that is included. Because I would hope, one of my personal goals is some type of breakwater there at Magnolia Beach to keep that constant beach erosion, because all we do is keep putting sand back and it washes away. We put sand back. Again, ultimately, the decision that you're going to have to make is here's what we can do with the budget that we're being provided in this grant. What are the priorities and what this project's going to look like. But we have thrown every conceivable economically sustainable environmental project concerning our waterfronts in that shopping list, but
Sedimentation reduction strategies, I mean, there's a lot, everything's in it.
And now we're doing something else that will hopefully tie in nicely with what we're trying to do overall with a design studio, which ties in what we're trying to do with the living shoreline, building once, and especially in an area like this where we're a suburb of the rainiest city in the country, and the fastest growing as well in the state. So kind of that perfect storm, with stormwater, just very, very, the fastest growing development. Take these funds and maybe have a regional accessible place where we show the best ways to design and in designing once. So all of this will hopefully tie into something even bigger.
It will help us in managing, SSO reduction.
Which is in bucket 3.
In bucket 3. So the bucket language is so odd.
Well, I guess that's what, I feel like I'm
Yeah.
in the dark about that. You said this is what we are trying to do. Well, we, the council, I don't think we have been a part of that, so.
Well, that's because we haven't gotten to the point where you would be a part of it. It's very
Who is a
general
part
right
of
now.
it then?
These are proposals that I worked on as what I feel like are the primary needs of our city right now. We
And the
needed a
council doesn't
comprehensive,
get to have a say in what the primary needs are. That just what,
well, the comprehensive land use plan is a primary need, because the other comprehensive plan was not really, it doesn't have teeth, and it doesn't put together what we need for utilities and growth, taking in our environment, discussing with all, pretty much the whole planning jurisdiction. This is going to be something, I think, one of the best proposals that we have. It's the least expensive, $650,000, but I think the most important. I think we can all agree that having money, you can only do proposals for bucket 3 that relate to quality, water quality. So when they waived the percentage of infrastructure needed for the sewer, I said, well, that's a perfect opportunity for us to add that to bucket 3. Now, that was kind of an opportunity that we didn't know would be available. It wasn't even in the original proposals. So at the last minute, we were able to add $1 million SSO study, and then the $10 million for sewer rehabilitation. Okay, we would never have the opportunity had they not waived that 25% infrastructure cap on that. So, and I emailed y'all when this happened. I said, this is what we're doing. I'm going to add this because we know it came right after we did the sewer study. So it worked out perfectly. And then the only other one was this, the living shoreline, which is the bluff stabilization. But, you know, we can't just put together anything. They have to, they're required to have certain qualifications and a long list of things that you kind of check off so that everybody that is on the voting board would have buy-in as well. So they're very well thought out, you know, so.
I would just ask you that if you would include the council, if we need to have a work session to just discuss what's being submitted, just to get buy-in from the council. It may be that we all 100% agree that that's a great idea. Might be that simple and say, we like what you're doing, keep going, but I think that now is the time for us to be informed about what's going on. And I'm not saying I have a single idea outside of what you've proposed, but I've not ever been given that opportunity to have an idea outside of what's been proposed either.
I'll have to forward everything, but I have absolutely, you know, discussed this and talked about things that are important, and I've discussed it
And it may
with y'all
be,
individually
that it's,
too.
You know, when you look at all the guidelines, that it's so limited to the things that have been mentioned, it may be that that's what you get pigeonholed into, and
Well,
and
really,
you've
it
made
was just
generic
the-
enough to include. It may be that, but when I get asked these questions and I'm not able to answer them, it's
Well,
I'd rather be able to give somebody.
The sewer, like I said, was just, it wasn't an afterthought. It was something that when I found out that the infrastructure percentage was waived, I said, well, we need more time then to have municipalities add something, because all of the funding for bucket 1 and 3 was going to be combined and just pushed through. And because of that, it ended up giving a lot of municipalities a lot more opportunity to redefine what they wanted out of bucket 3. So we had 6.2, like I said, for the municipal pier, and the 650 for the comprehensive land use plan. But having that was really, it came after the sewer study also. We said, we're going to put it in for this because it's a new qualification, and other municipalities were able to get a lot more money for that. So there's nothing being done behind the scenes, because where we are today, we're still in almost a conceptual idea, except for sewer rehabilitation. Richard Peterson can also say that we could have asked for 30 million and have used it, you know, but we also wanted to ask for something that we felt like would be approved by everybody, because they're not just going to give everybody a big portion of money. So 10 million was what I felt like we could get approved, but rehabilitation is an ongoing, forever, and it far exceeds $10 million. So again, the next step when we get funding is bringing everybody in, including council, which I've said before, I want at least 2 council people on each proposal. That's when we can really brainstorm and make these proposals the very best that they can be.
There is an opportunity to put more things into the portal moving forward too.
Right.
So that could be an opportunity for some more.
But, you know, the deadline
Collaboration.
for getting these in was it like in January?
It's in January.
After
It
I
was
took
in
office.
January, right after.
And it was a matter of taking out we didn't take out anything, but, you know, there was a lot of stuff in the portal that we had already done it, or it just really didn't relate to the things that had been identified as very important to go through the whole process and get final approval.
The proposals
So-
that were put in were primarily based on results of studies too. Just like most of
Right.
the funding we've gone after, it was a result of a study that had been done and.
But not used.
Issues that were identified and no source of funding to address the concern. So that was, I think, the kind of approach for, you know, for putting in
But it
there
was, I
some of
wouldn't
the
say it
things.
was thrown together, because I love what we ended up getting, but it had to be redone very quickly.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Hey, thank y'all.
And I have some crib notes on each of the things that are moving forward that I can send out to y'all again and
That'd be
just,
great.
yeah, and it's just kind of short narratives that are, give you talking points,
Yes.
if that's helpful.
That is,
Okay.
okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Montgomery, discussion on migrating push-to-talk. Give him a minute to come in. We need to get you one of those multicolored curtains back there, so when you come in, you can, yeah.
So,
Those of you that watch Carson would know what I'm talking about.
so I spoke briefly last council meeting that they were having some issues with our current push-to-talk or radio provider, Southern Link, and wanted to. This wasn't planned when I was putting the budget together, so that's why I wanted to come to you and just kind of run the numbers by you. The police department, all utilities have come to me and basically said that something's got to be done because they're having trouble communicating. There are a lot of dead spots within the city. So we went out, got some demo units from Verizon, let each department demo the units, and they were pleased with the performance of the Verizon devices. I've printed out just kind of a quick price comparison of the two services. Just kind of comparing them one by one. I believe each aspect of the price, Verizon beats Southern Link, except for the hardware cost. The smartphone is $179 with Verizon, where it's at 99 cents with Southern Link. However, Verizon said that after 2 months of service, that they'll give us $100 rebate on each smartphone that we purchase. That will be something new that we'll be adding with Verizon. The police officers have made it well aware to me that they really need a smartphone out in the field. Especially, I think one of their biggest needs was the camera, to be able to take pictures out in the field. They don't want to use their personal device to take the picture because it could become part of the evidence chain and could be subpoenaed, and then they'll lose access to their personal device. So I think that's one thing we ought to consider adding for the police department. And plus, they'll have access to email and be able to share the photos as well with the smartphone. The thing that concerns me is with Southern Link is that they only have one tower location in the city of Fairhope. Verizon, I believe, has 3 or more. I can't remember the last count. So the coverage area is quite larger than Southern Link. So what I'm asking is if I have permission to move forward, because what I don't have budgeted is the purchasing of the new devices to transition over to Verizon.
How many devices would that, let's say, I'm just going to call it $80, which is the net cost after 2 months.
Right.
How many of those would we buy total? Talking.
About 40.
It's 3,200.
Yeah.
So my only other question, that was one question. The other was, how much will the Southern Link service be restored once we finish painting the water tower?
No, none of it's affected by the water tank.
And then, I guess in fairness to Southern Link, they've been serving us for a while.
They have
We
been.
get revenue. They host a big golf tournament
Yeah, I
at the
know.
golf course. And
Yeah.
spend a lot of money there on that, so we lose that, I'm sure. What, have you given them an opportunity to explain why or when their service might be fully restored?
Well, they're fully restored now. The reason why I kind of rushed it last council meeting, I was really worried because they had only one data center and it was flooded. Apparently, according to the email. So I was almost worried that they're not going to be able to actually restore service. But within a day, they were actually able to restore service. They're going right now. I've talked with Southern Link, and they keep reminding us that they are transitioning over to 4G technology. They're currently on 2G. And then they're saying the coverage is better with the 4G phones, but it still doesn't mitigate the fact they have one tower here in Fairhope, where I know of this year that tower has gone offline twice, leaving us without service in the area, the coverage area. They have talked about adding towers everywhere but Fairhope. I think Stapleton, and they mentioned there's another location in Baldwin County, but not Fairhope. So,
Were we having problems with them prior, to this? You said that there's some dead spots. So have we just always lived with those dead spots and now we don't have to because there's an emerging market? Maybe there wasn't a competitor in the past, or why were we using them in the past if we had these issues?
I was hoping that maybe the utility guys can help me out with that, because honestly, I don't use Southern Link. I have a Verizon phone. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. I will say, we use Southern Links with the inspectors, and Scenic 98, particularly Grand Hotel, a little bit south, Montrose, there is absolutely no coverage.
Never been any?
Not very, very spotty. One of the issues I'd mentioned to Jeff, and it was actually before he brought this up, we had a full building fire alarm inspection on a final building a couple weeks ago, 3 floors. I had 6 inspectors in the building. We planned to go to each floor, radio each other so that the alarm company could reset. And this was, just north of the library. We had no coverage in the building. We ended up running to the stairwell to yell back and forth up 3 flights to let each other know. And it's not unusual. It really depends on where you are. But anywhere south of town, north of town, east of town's not bad, 181. But anywhere else, I'm having a heck of a time.
But it's always
reaching.
been that way.
It's always been that way. Yeah.
So Jeff, we have on this, I'm going to call it that example too. You said about 40 smartphones.
That's correct. It'll be 40 smart devices that we purchasing through Verizon.
And the $1.99 is inconsequential. But what about example 1? How many of those would we have total?
22. And that uses the basic phone. Example 2 does use the basic phone. The only purpose for the smartphone is actually adding the data and the camera. But the other users that use the push-to-talk and just the cell phone will get the basic phone.
Okay, so 22 roughly.
That's
What I'm trying
correct.
to do is find that savings. So there's 22 times 5,
Yeah,
which
then
is
there's
$110 a month
then
savings for those 22 phones.
We-
Or, I'll call it $1,300 a year.
Then we have 68 push-to-talk or radio-only users. So they're the ones that will pay the $17.99 a month. I didn't put that in as an example. I should have, but so we have 68 users that just have radio only.
68,
So they'll save $2 a piece.
yeah, so that's another,
Then we
that's
have
another 136 a month.
27. We'll have 27 app users. Cost difference between that is 8.
That's 216 a month. 246, 216 is 462. That's $462 a month in usage
So
savings.
7 months to break even.
And so, yeah, those smartphones are good for about 3 years before they have to be replaced. And usually Verizon has a good replacement program. You know, I know cost is cheaper, but really it's the coverage I think that's affecting us. When I was walking in the door earlier, Mike Allison said, you know, dispatch wasn't able to get in touch with electric this weekend. And I was like, well, so
Counsel.
things like that.
I think if you're having problems and it's not attributed to the temporary problems with the water tower, then I think you probably need to make a change.
Yep.
People need to be able to communicate.
Yeah, so Verizon is off the water tank right now. So, I mean, to me, their service is pretty good right now. I think it'll just improve once it gets back on the water tank. But Southern Towers, I think it's actually located just south of the warehouse on close to Highway 44. That's where their location is. So if everything looks good, I'll just get a final proposal from Verizon, put it on
Get the final proposal.
Put it on an
We'll
agenda,
vote on
and
it at
y'all
the
can
next
vote for
meeting. Yeah, let's vote on it. I still want to actually call Southern Link just for peace of mind.
Sure, absolutely.
Just almost out of courtessy to them.
Yeah, I
Because we're
hate
gonna
it.
lose a little something there.
I mean, I've loved our relationship. Lisa Glenn, probably one of the best count.
Yeah, they are good people.
They are.
It's a tough call, but it
Call
something
them on
makes
their
sense.
phone and go down there to 98 to Grand Hotel.
Try to beep them.
Well, when it breaks, then you can call them back up and say, now you know why we have a problem. And I laugh, that's what I did when I changed phone service. I showed you the problem.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Committee updates. Kevin?
Actually, we had our personnel board meeting today and got a good briefing on it. I did want to add the fact that make sure everybody understands that this 6% increase is not money spent. It's the projected income that the employees are able to make. It's not money that's spent right away.
Right.
But, and, you know, it was a very good meeting. And so I think it should be considered very highly with the council. Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. Councilman Brown?
Bike Ped did not meet. The EAC had a good meeting last week. We had Cecil Christenberry and John Gray came and talked with the committee about pros and cons of steps looking forward to the special tax district for the Fairhope feeder pattern. I think Superintendent Tyler is supposed to try to meet with us here in the near future and give us his thoughts on it as we try to move a little bit closer, figuring out what direction we want to take. That's it.
Councilman Conyers?
Not a whole lot to report, just Historic Preservation Committee meets at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. I think they're going to be having officer elections. Environmental Advisory Board is scheduled to meet at 3 p.m. on Friday. I know there were a couple people that said they couldn't make that a meeting, so we'll see if they have a quorum. And Library Board is taking off until January, just due to people's travel schedules and the repairs on the library. It's made it easier just to take a break unless needed, so that's all I've got.
Christmas parade committee met last Wednesday. Things went all right.
Why'd y'all do that?
Went okay. I did miss the rec board meeting time. There's something that happened at the rec board meeting that,
I didn't make this last one, they rescheduled it right when I had vacation.
all right. See, I don't feel so bad anymore then. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. I don't have any committees to report on. Department head updates, Mr. Johnson?
Nothing. I wore you out on the last agenda, so I don't have much, but you will note that there is a request on the agenda tonight to authorize the application for the 2020 Recreational Trails Grant. As you know, you authorized us to go after an opportunity to add trails to North Beach Park last year. We did not receive that grant. Good news about the DECA and the recreational trails, they tell you what they didn't like about your application so that if you reapply, you can try to address those deficiencies. And we're requesting to take another shot at it for the 2020 funding. Other than that, Christmas parade was phenomenal. Thank y'all for letting us host such an event. Public Works makes it look easy, and just to kind of shout out to our folks, they just get out there with a smile on their face and get it set up and get it cleaned up and help the magic of Fairhope and the magic of Christmas go forward. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Dias?
Yes, sir. At the last meeting, we spoke about the small cell technology moratorium, and doing some research for that, we came across a little bit of a glitch. The Federal Telecommunications Act has some limitations on moratoriums and such, so we're working through that right now. We're doing some research, and hopefully, once we get that finished, we'll come back and kind of let the council know what we can and can't do. Anytime you deal with federal law, it gets very, very complicated. So, but we are working through that. But there are some prohibitions in there that we are trying to make sure we don't run afoul of. So we'll bring an update at the next work session, hopefully.
While I've got you here, because we are going to get through our agenda tonight in our agenda meeting. But so while you're here, would you like to touch on item 7?
Yes, sir.
I'll call that the Greeno Road Corridor Moratorium.
Yes, sir. That's what we discussed at the work session as well. The resolution you have, or ordinance you have there is for the moratorium, and basically it would prohibit the application of rezoning site plans, MOPs, for anything on Greeno Road Corridor. The way it's written, it's the whole corridor from the northern part of the corporate limits to the south. I have some maps also if we can try to show those.
Where exactly would that be? Would that be north of Rock Creek?
Yes, sir. That's the current proposals, go north of Rock Creek and all the way south. Only those properties that are in the corporate limits, though. We're not talking about properties that are not in the corporate limits.
South Greeno?
Yes, sir.
As well?
Yes, sir. And we have some maps also showing the 400-foot buffer that goes along there as well.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yep. Thank you. Ms. Mazur, do you have anything? Jay, do you have anything? Yeah, sure.
Hello, everybody.
No, you're anxious to give one because things are moving, right?
We've got one more report.
I'll give it to you either way. I gave you bad news before, too. But anyway, I talked to Carl Nelson, Councilman Brown, and Councilman Boone. That's the gentleman you spoke to who came in and briefed you on it. He assures me that everything from the cell phone position is on, it's on schedule. They should turn it over to the carriers the 19th. They're going to be finished the 18th. They won't turn it over to us yet, and we realize that there are some problems that they're going to have to work through because of the weather, and the inside is very, very difficult because we had so much rain to keep the painting going in there, and they're power washing it, and it'll be a perfect project when they're done, he assures me. But he's already working with the carriers to get a schedule to get all the antennas back on, and it'll start hopefully on the 19th.
How long? Do you have any idea how long that takes?
I'm going to hopefully tell you on the 20th.
Okay.
I'll be here on the 20th. He's supposed to have a better schedule for me then.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right. All right. Any questions on well 7? Because I know it's on the agenda.
No, I'll make some comments on that when we get to that
All
tonight.
right. I'll be here if you want some. All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Mr. Cool? Terry? I must have all kind of good news. They're all jumping up at the same time, ready to speak.
Don't get your hopes up here. I did want to make you aware, natural gas prices went up probably 60–70%, closed out between November and December, so we are going to do some work on the cost of gas adjustment for this month. And it's been relatively flat, but we're looking at probably a 5 or so cent deduction in what we had currently been discounting gas to. So I just want to make everybody aware. You may hear people, hey, my gas bill went up. Yeah. And just so you know, that's what caused that.
Do we need to have that on the next agenda?
I thought it was one of those automatic
If it's due to the cost of gas, is that an automatic that we need to vote on? I know we always have that. We always have those. We used to have those little adjustments that we voted on. I thought it was for gas.
No, these are
I think it's an automatic adjustment because it happens. I mean, it's, we get the information like 3 days ago, and we're looking to change it because we'll be sending bills out next week. So, but anyway, that's all I've got really. Unless you got any other questions, I'd be happy to.
Anybody have any questions?
Okay. Thank
you. Jumped up because I don't that long awkward walk when nobody's up here. Try to be prepared. So the State of the City, you all know that's happening. I think I talked with you all. It's going to be an expo this year on January 24th and it'll be from 5 until 7. I sent an email out and everything, but I know sometimes email traffic gets heavy, so I just want to mention it again. Council will have a table, junior council will have a table. She's waving because our junior council president is here. So we're really excited about it. I don't have a whole lot of details other than the time and the place, and we're working on it internally. And please reach out if you have any questions or ideas.
Okay.
National Park Service, y'all approved something the last meeting for that connectivity master plan. The kickoff meeting for that, the Park Service is coming down on January 8th. So we've been recruiting a steering committee for that. People from all different committees and things like that. If any of you want to participate, you're more than welcome. I know we've reached out to the rec board for one, and some of you are on that board. So that's kicking off on the 8th. So that's moving forward. The Bratz Hub alleyway project, that big project will begin. We expect, I was hoping this afternoon to have our final legal documentation in place, but the design phase of that project will start probably this week or next week, which basically means we'll just be reaching out to people for input that are affected by the project. And there'll be some sort of public engagement on that, broader than just the people that are affected. So I don't know if that'll be a survey or what will come out of that. But it's moving. And the only other thing I wanted to bring up, I don't have a lot of details about this, but I just want to throw it out because it is coming, or hopes to come, to Fairhope, which is a film that wants to come here. It seems pretty low impact right now, but I want to get all the details before it comes forward. I think there is a director coming in town next week to do just some site work and see what would work, what wouldn't, and then when I have more information, I'll come formally, with their proposal. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Montgomery?
I don't have an update. I just gotta fix this mic real quick. Back online.
Electric Department?
Thank you anyway.
We have the transformers on the agenda tonight for that.
Okay. Yeah, we can knock some of that out real quick too, if you'd like. So there's a little over $1 million in purchases for transformers on the agenda.
Yes,
and it's
sir.
the first part of about $2.4 million in expenditures for transformers. And I can only assume they're for the substation upgrades work they were going to start on. Right?
They are. The two that we're getting this fiscal year for the Twin Beach, the 44 kV transformers, 115 to 44, and then going into Volanta and Fairhope subs
Okay.
down the road.
Well, those are the majority of I'm assuming it's definitely not all the components that we need, but it's
No,
just
those
the
are most
majority of the
expensive.
large transformers that we'll need. I'm assuming that they build them to spec and it'll take, 6, 8 months, a year? to get 'em?
Up to 9 months,
Yeah.
depending on, with the hurricane happening in Florida and other things, your lead times can fluctuate as other utilities have stuff damaged. Typically 6 to 9 months, depending on the manufacturers, but we have firm commitments for the delivery dates for October of this year's, September, October of this year, of next year, 2019, and then into 20.
Any questions on that? I had some questions earlier today about that, and I just thought it was the substation upgrades, and
Yes, sir.
hopefully nothing had been hit by lightning.
No, it's just the upgrades, and those are
Called
the,
you a little sooner than.
yeah, those are the upgrades, and those are the longest lead time items, so we need to get those. And
Right.
then we set in for firm pricing, so that's a good thing.
Okay, excellent. All right, great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Eric? Marcus, anything from legal? Chief? Oh, you're all good? Okay. So we'll go back, we'll start back on the agenda now at number 5. This will be the final reading of this ordinance. Wayne, it'll be you if you have any questions for that. Wayne, that'd be you for number 6 on the Old Battles Village PUD as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Wayne would also be 7. 8 will be, all of us can cover that. And we'll take public comments on that in the public participation section of tonight's meeting. Number 9, anybody had any questions? Lisa, you can even answer those, right? This is a pretty standard contract. Marcus, you can talk about this AT&T agreement, the video services.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Council, at the last meeting, I brought something up, and I still haven't heard any different. I think it's still valid, is that I have had several residents over the last month or so, asking me about MediaCom's exclusive rights to this and that, and I've told them that I don't know of any exclusive rights. I mean, we grant these internet service providers, use of our right-of-way. If they want to run their cable or fiber or whatever it is that copper, whatever it is they want to run to a subdivision, and we always allow them to use our right-of-ways, right? There's no exclusive agreement, is there, Eric? Yeah, I don't know where these rumors are starting, but I'm saying this for the public to hear that there's no exclusivity that exists for those providers.
If there was exclusivity, we would not have AT&T at this time.
That is correct. There is no exclusive, we have MediaCom, we have AT&T both. One of the things that happens, though, and I don't throw anybody under the bus, but we get a lot of calls from residents saying, AT&T isn't coming into our neighborhood yet. Can you make them do that? That's a business decision that AT&T and MediaCom make. A lot of times they'll wait until there's a certain number of occupied homes in a subdivision, and that's their decision.
That's a business decision.
It is.
No,
The
that's
other
not-
thing that comes up, though, are temp lines that you'll see. They'll drop an orange line. It generally runs in the ditch line and then to another. We're going to be redoing the right-of-way ordinance in January, and we're going to address that and give them because right now we've got some that have been out there for 6 months. There's no time frame they have to bury them. We're going to give them a deadline by which they have to bury them.
And the message to council is that if you have a citizen that complains about that service, and the service tries to, if they do, blame the city, it's not on the city. It's up to the provider to determine whether or not they want to provide service to someone. The city allows them the use of the right-of-way. The recreational trails grant, Wayne, you'd be responsible for that. Do you have questions about that on item 10?
Richard.
You're not Wayne, you're Richard. All right.
I'll answer the thing, sir.
Y'all look so much alike, I couldn't. Item 11. The C grant, it'll be Sherry Lee. You want to talk about that for a minute? We got a few minutes. We can do it now and not do it in a meeting, right?
Had to do that long walk anyway, didn't I? So this is a project that we're doing we hope to do in coordination with the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce. I don't know if you'll recall, but about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, we did a Community Resilience Index project here, and it's what has helped us define a lot of the work that the grants we've applied for, because it identified areas where we were, I guess, deficient in resilience. So anything from business continuity to, being able to assist citizens to environmental issues. What this would do is allow us to work, not just in Fairhope, to do our second phase of that, but also to work with our Fairhope businesses on business continuity planning. We've already developed a survey working with the Chamber. The Chamber has sent that out to local businesses. This will allow us to take it a step further and work with the businesses to develop their own continuity plans. NOAA and Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant help with that. We don't have to provide any funding. As a matter of fact, some of the funding could go to support things like, pay for some of my time as staff working on the project, and pay for some other things, materials and things that we would need, but there's no fiscal requirement from the city.
And so real things will come out of this. They will provide businesses with these strategies and plans. I mean, this is not a study to do another study.
No, this is to
figure out
develop.
how they're going to plan for a plan, is it?
And this is for things like anything from your Home Depots to your small businesses. 40% of businesses after disasters don't open up again. And so we want to help identify any deficiencies those businesses have now, rather than, after the disaster when they are really struggling. It's also to help us identify areas that have products and equipment and things like lumber, gas, things like that our citizens would need in the event of a major disaster or even a smaller disaster. So it helps us cities have all these resources. Now Fairhope will be the lead on the project, but we'll be working with Spanish Fort and Daphne too. So it helps all of us because we're working on a regional plan rather than just Fairhope having a plan, and that's what this is. So we would like to request that funding and move forward with the project.
Okay, excellent. Item 12, would that be Mr. Johnson or Mr. Peterson to talk about? Okay. Mr. Peterson, do you mind giving us this is just changing the contract amount by 13,621?
Well, what we had with Stewart Engineering was an annual on-call service. And when we started getting to the point where there was no movement really on the marine electrical, we utilized that on-call service to continue the design work that Joe Walchina had started before he had left. And, when we got the second and third pay request for their services, I was informed that they had reached their limit on that service, which we could have renewed it if we had known earlier that we were getting close to that limit. We could have renewed it for the next year and rolled over the contract, but we didn't do that. So now we're looking to just change it so we're able to pay for his services, including inspection during construction, which is a total of all that.
Is this something we get reimbursed at 80% on as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we can talk internally about whether we want to have another annual contract with him. Now that we have an electrical engineer on staff, I think we'll forego some of that work that they would have already done, would have done anyway. So right, we're doing pretty good with that. But we do need to finish, and he's given us a conservative in terms of it won't go any higher than this estimate for the construction inspection work. So we feel like that's a not to exceed limit is, hopefully we won't be touching it, but,
Right.
I thought that when we did the outfall emergency repair too, we touched it, we got that high.
Right. Okay. So while you're up here, are you the guy to talk to about the cured in place pipe?
Yes, that's an annual rehabilitation contract, and we're still in the throes of the second renewal, but we go ahead and renew it and continue to do that work under the third year as well when we get to that point.
So is this considered routine maintenance, or is this kind of more considered our infrastructure?
It's capital improvement. It's capital improvement to the main sewer lines.
Okay.
And it's a ongoing process with the camera work we've got going now. We're trying to find the places that need it the most, which is part of what this cured in place pipe contract will do. The other part of it will be to put in our pocket places where the BP restoration money can be applied to. So we're trying to get the worst of it done when we can, what we have to work with, but then, hold back on what we think we can until we get that other Restore Act money.
How long would that, Mr. Engineer in me wants to ask, when you put this cured in place pipe in there, in the existing sewer mains, what's the life expectancy of that?
50 years.
Barring 50 years,
Yeah, it's
barring a
50-year
tree
life.
root going through it. And I guess we do look at that as well, don't we?
You did ask on the radio today, and I wanted to let you know that we do point repairs before. If there's any root or any disruption in the pipe, we do point repairs right away. And Richard and I have spoke about getting with Volkert or somebody, an engineer, to get a point replaced, a prayer contract in place like Daphne and other municipal utilities have done for some that are too deep and too extensive for us to do. The company that we have now, John Cossie and Suncoast, are not equipped to do that. We tried to get them to do one on Nichols, but it was $180,000 for about 20 feet of pipe. So we couldn't afford that. Yeah.
How deep is it? Are you okay?
It was deep. It was 18, 20 feet deep. And, we have, the water tables on Nichols is really, really high right there. And so we'd have to have well points and stuff like that, as you well know. But I did want to tell you that. I heard you ask that on the radio today.
Right.
All right. Okay.
All right.
I'm guessing we're not curing in place pipe that's gonna have to be replaced in the,
No, sir,
With the-
that's the
Right.
point of the
Sewer.
point repair. When you video down that main, what you'll find is there are some pipe joints that have sheared and one joint will be well below the other one. So you got to go in and physically repair that to straighten it out. And then when they line that, it'll be from manhole to manhole. And they'll do a cured in place liner and they'll go back in and cut out all the laterals. Now, the only work left to do with that system would be at the manhole and at the laterals from the main to the right-of-way, which, you know, we're getting the camera set up to where we can add a launcher into that camera system so we can go up into a lateral and look at the condition of it. What we're trying to do, what we hope we can do, is find cleanouts at each house and use the lateral camera we have to video from the house to the main. So then we'll have a record of what the condition of the laterals are too. And we're looking at other techniques now instead of a liner for those laterals. There's a system out there that's an injection system where they pressurize that lateral and it looks like a silicone concrete finished kind of product at the end of it. And it permeates beyond the cracks where the pipes are cracked and allows that entire sand and other material to be part of the repair. And it's a pretty significant, you know, it's almost like putting concrete on the outside of the pipe and, you know, with the pressure of this system that they have. It's pretty impressive. We're going to look at having a part of that point repair contract, may be having that lateral work done as well. And we'll start out slow and look at, you know, examples of what they can accomplish with that. But it looks like it may be promising for a easy way to repair a lateral versus digging down to the main, putting a saddle on it, and bringing it back up to some pipe on the private property. But yeah, it just takes time and money, you know. We're trying to be judicious with both, and, you know, sometimes it catches up to us. But we're working hard to get it done.
Yeah, sometimes you wonder, you know, is a trencher and new pipe cheaper?
I haven't found anybody that has found
Right.
replacing the whole thing cheaper, but, you know, Kevin can probably speak to that on that.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Okay, on the pump and column assembly for well number 7, Jay, you could cover that. We had, council, I was going to say to you is that there was a, you know, there was a question asked of do we need to have an emergency meeting? Do we need to get these parts ordered? And I had offered up a solution to staff to just say, you know, call the council members. I can't do it for you, but you can call them. And if you feel good that they're going to vote in favor of this, then we'll go ahead and put it on the next agenda. We don't have to have a special meeting. And so I believe that's what happened. I had also asked a question, not to step on anybody's toes, but as part of my job, is I just asked the question of the purchasing department, was everything done according to our ordinances? And the answer was yes. That's just part, you know, because we were kind of going to vote on this in hindsight, I want to make sure that the proper procedures were followed in getting the prices, and I feel good that they were.
Right.
So that's why the question
That's
was
okay.
asked. And I believe, did you get the parts ordered, though?
Yes, they got ordered, and I appreciate everything that you guys did. We were trying to take care of the customers, and I agree with the email that I received, that, you know, there's probably a small possibility that we can have another catastrophic failure right away, but it's not just that. You know, we have lightning storms that come through, and it wouldn't take, that's our best producing well. When you take into consideration that treatment plant 1 is also the one that produces what we need is what the water, you know, the water into the system. So it's critical that we get it done as soon as humanly possible. And I mentioned state testing too. We'd like to get that done before the 31st because it is more expensive and there is some extensive testing that we'd have to do. We can do it. It's no issue whatsoever, but it saves a lot of work for everybody. I think we're on, you know, on point. We're getting that done. Okay. But we're just trying to take care of the customer as well as you are too.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. We talked about the transformers, item number 16, item 17, the K-9 hog. Chief, do you want to come up and we can discuss that for a few minutes?
The life expectancy of a canine in the police department is normally 5 years. Gus is at his 7th year, and he is telling us it's time for him to retire. So what we've asked is, we did put this in the budget. Normally, it was a $10,000 request, and we're now asking $13,500. That gives us a fully trained canine for an officer, for actually Corporal Rada, who is currently Gus's handler. And normally, we would get a dog for $10,000, and we'd have to go to a 12-week training class. So this eliminates that 12-week training class. We get a fully trained dog for the little extra, put him straight to work. Corporal Rada doesn't lose any time at work, and we go straight at it.
Now, this says, in the resolution, it says the additional cost includes the fully trained and certified canine plus attendance by an officer at the 12-week certification school. So does that officer still have to go to the 12-week certification school?
No, sir. No, there will be no training because Corporal Rada is already our canine handler. He's one of 2 canine handlers that we have. So what he'll do is he will just pick up from the dog. We won't have, or pick up with the dog. We won't have to do any training. Any training that we do, we can do on-site here in the course of day-to-day operation.
I didn't know if it was dog-specific, if their 12 weeks training, if it was
If
dog-specific.
If we went with a non-trained dog, then we would have to send the handler with the dog for 12 weeks. But because we're asking to spend the little extra, the dog will come to us completely trained.
Okay. All right. And the clerk is saying that there's an error in the letter, which that makes sense if there's an error otherwise. No, the resolution's fine. Okay. Any
right.
questions for the chief?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last item, and we'll just wait, if anybody has any questions for the Wi-Fi equipment on item 18, we'll ask Jeff during the council meeting. Other than that, we have an appointment to Harbor Board, a request from Fairhope Sunset Rotary, and then a motion to go into executive session. So we'll go ahead and adjourn, and hope to see everybody back here in about 7 minutes.